Have you ever opened your fridge, smiled with pride, and thought everything in here is safe, fresh, and just where it should be? You're not alone. For decades, we've been taught that refrigeration is the ultimate tool for keeping food fresh. And in many cases, that's true. But here's the surprising twist. Some of the foods we routinely store in the fridge, things as ordinary as potatoes, tomatoes, even honey, actually suffer when chilled. In fact, keeping them cold can drain their flavor, dull their nutrients, and in a few cases, quietly make them harmful to your health. Today, we're going to explore 10 everyday foods that should never be stored in the refrigerator. I'll explain the science, share a few old school tips, and help you avoid the quiet mistakes that steal joy from your meals, especially if you care about flavor, wellness, and living with intention. Stick with me to the end because these changes are simple, but the impact can be profound. And if you're enjoying content like this, let me know you're here by commenting the number one below. It helps me know these lessons are reaching the people who need them most. All right, let's begin with a food that's humble, comforting, and beloved across generations. Potatoes. Baked, mashed, roasted, scalloped. Potatoes have been the quiet star of family dinners for generations. They're hearty, versatile, and familiar in the best way. But storing them in the fridge? That's where many of us go wrong. You see, when potatoes are exposed to cold temperatures, like the chilly air of your refrigerator, the starches inside begin converting into sugars at a much faster rate. That might not sound so bad at first, but it changes everything. Instead of tasting rich and earthy, they become strangely sweet, cloying even. And the texture? Gritty, mealy, sometimes even mushy. Not what you want in your Sunday mashed potatoes. Worse still, those extra sugars create a compound called acrylamide when potatoes are roasted, fried, or baked at high heat. It's a chemical that scientists have linked to potential cancer risks. The research is still developing, but the concern is strong enough that health experts advise against encouraging acrylamide formation when we can easily avoid it. And it's not just about safety, it's about flavor and longevity too. Refrigerators tend to be humid. That dampness seeps into your spuds, breaking down their structure. They go soft, they sprout faster, and they develop a smell that's anything but appetizing. So what's the better path? Store your potatoes in a cool, dark, dry place, like a pantry, a cabinet, or a well-ventilated drawer. Avoid plastic bags, which trap moisture and speed up spoilage. Instead, opt for a mesh bag, a paper sack, or even a wicker basket. These allow air to circulate while keeping light out, which helps prevent greening and sprouting. Here's one more tip you might not know. Never store your onions with your potatoes. It might feel convenient, but onions release a gas called ethylene, which can cause your potatoes to age and spoil faster. They're not the best roommates. By making this small shift, taking your potatoes out of the fridge and giving them the right home, you're protecting their texture, preserving their nutrients, and avoiding unnecessary health risks. And maybe just as important, you're preserving that warm, familiar comfort food the way it's meant to be. If you're still here and this was helpful, drop a wadi emoji or comment number one below. I'd love to know you're watching. In the next part, we'll explore 2 more everyday foods that lose their magic in the fridge, and one of them might be sitting on your sandwich right now. Shall we keep going? Tomatoes. There's something about a ripe, juicy tomato that feels like summer in your hands. Whether it's sliced onto a sandwich, scattered into a salad, or slowly simmered into a sauce, tomatoes bring brightness, balance, and just the right amount of tang. They're simple, vibrant, and full of flavor. But here's the problem. When we store them in the refrigerator, we strip them of that magic. It's a habit many of us have. You come home from the store, unload your groceries, and gently place the tomatoes on the fridge shelf, believing you're preserving them. But instead of preserving their goodness, you're quietly turning them dull. Why? Because cold air interrupts the tomato's natural ripening process. When a tomato is picked, it's still alive in a sense. It's still developing flavor, still softening, still building the juicy balance of sweetness and acidity that makes it special. But the fridge halts that process in its tracks. The result? A tomato that's mealy, watery, and bland. The flavor fades. the texture breaks down. It looks fine until you bite into it. Then you realize something's missing. And it's not just about taste. Tomatoes are rich in lycopene, a powerful antioxidant that supports heart health and may help reduce cancer risk. But exposure to cold temperatures can degrade lycopene levels, meaning the longer tomatoes sit in your fridge, the fewer of those protective compounds remain. For older adults looking to eat with purpose, that's a quiet cost worth avoiding. So what's the better way? Leave your tomatoes on the countertop at room temperature, out of direct sunlight. If possible, store them stem side down. This helps reduce moisture loss and keeps the tomato from spoiling too quickly at the base. Let them ripen naturally, just as they were meant to. Only once they're fully ripe, and you know you won't use them for a day or two, should the fridge come into play. And even then, bring them back to room temperature before eating. A chilled tomato is a muted tomato, but a room temp tomato? It sings. Now let's turn to a kitchen workhorse that may be quietly stirring up trouble in your fridge. Onions. Strong, savory, and full of character, onions are the foundation of so many great meals. A sizzle in the pan, the start of a soup, the first fragrant step toward dinner. Onions aren't flashy, but they're essential. And like tomatoes, they don't appreciate being stored in the cold. When you place a whole, unpeeled onion in the fridge, you expose it to excess moisture. And that's where the trouble begins. Cold humidity causes onions to absorb water and break down. They soften. They go soggy. Sometimes they even start to grow mold or sprout green shoots before you get a chance to use them. Worse yet, their flavor changes. Instead of staying sharp and pungent, refrigerated onions can turn sweet, even sour. And their strong smell? It doesn't stay put. Onions are notorious for spreading their scent to everything nearby. Your butter, your berries, your eggs, all suddenly take on a whiff of onion that has no business being there. It's one of those tiny kitchen frustrations that adds up over time. So here's the fix. Store whole onions in a cool, dry, and ventilated place, like a pantry, a cellar, or even a dedicated produce basket. Skip the plastic bags, which trap moisture and speed up decay. Instead, use a mesh bag, paper sack, or open container that allows the onion to breathe. And just like with potatoes, keep onions and potatoes far apart. Potatoes release moisture and ethylene gas, which can make onions sprout or rot faster. It's a silent rivalry, best kept at a distance. Now, if you've already sliced an onion and have leftovers, that's when the fridge is useful. Just wrap it tightly in plastic or seal it in an airtight container. This helps contain the smell and keep it fresh for a few days. Handled properly, onions last longer, taste better, and won't invade your fridge with their scent. These small changes, letting tomatoes ripen on the counter, giving onions space to breathe, may seem minor, but over time they protect your meals, preserve nutrition, and reduce waste. They're acts of care, not just for your food, but for yourself and the people you cook for. If this insight helped you, drop A or emoji in the comments, or just write "still with you," so I know you're still learning with me. In the next section, we'll explore garlic and avocados, two of the most misunderstood foods when it comes to storage. One brings warmth to every dish, the other adds creamy richness, but both have strong opinions about where they belong. Shall we keep going? Garlic. Tucked into almost every kitchen across America is something small, humble, and powerful. Garlic. It doesn't ask for much, a dry spot in the pantry, a little peel before chopping, but what it gives back is enormous. It builds the foundation of flavor in stews, brings warmth to roasted vegetables, and adds soul to sauces passed down for generations. But when you store garlic in the refrigerator, you risk unraveling its magic. Here's why. Garlic bulbs prefer to stay cool and dry, not cold and damp. The refrigerator's chilly humidity creates the perfect storm for trouble. Cloves begin to sprout prematurely, sending up little green shoots that look innocent, but carry a bitter taste that changes the entire flavor of your meal. Not only that, moisture in the fridge can make garlic soft, moldy, or even slimy, breaking down its firm structure. And because garlic is porous, it can absorb the odors of surrounding foods, turning your next pasta sauce into an odd blend of garlic, leftover salmon, and whatever else happens to be nearby. So what's the better way? Store whole heads of garlic in a cool, dark, and well-ventilated space. A mesh bag, a clay pot, or a small basket in the pantry will do beautifully. It keeps the garlic dry and airy, allowing it to breathe and stay fresh for weeks, sometimes even months. Once you break the bulb and separate the cloves, the countdown begins. For the best flavor, use the cloves within 7 to 10 days. And if you've chopped or minced more than you need, a short stay in the fridge is okay, but seal it tightly. A small glass jar or container with a tight-fitting lid will help contain both the smell and moisture. One word of caution, never store garlic in oil at room temperature. This can create an environment where dangerous bacteria like Clostridium, botulinum, botulism thrive. If you love garlic oil, make it fresh and refrigerate it immediately. Use it within a week. Stored thoughtfully, garlic remains what it was always meant to be: bold, healing, unforgettable. A small gift from the earth that adds warmth to every dish and comfort to every kitchen. Avocados. Now let's talk about a modern favorite, avocados. Creamy, rich, and full of heart-healthy fats, avocados have earned their place on everything from toast to tacos. But for all their buttery goodness, they can also be a bit fussy, especially when it comes to how we store them. If you've ever bought a beautiful green avocado and stuck it straight into the refrigerator, you may have noticed something strange. It never ripened. It stayed hard for days, even weeks, and when you finally cut it open, it was rubbery, flavorless, and just off. That's because refrigeration stops the ripening process in its tracks. Avocados need warmth to ripen properly. They produce a natural gas called ethylene, which signals the fruit to soften and sweeten over time. This process works best at room temperature, not inside a cold fridge. If you place an unripe avocado in the fridge, it will stay hard indefinitely. And even after you take it back out, it might never ripen properly again. The flesh can turn grayish, stringy, or uneven, with an odd bitterness instead of that smooth, nutty flavor you were expecting. So what should you do? Here's the golden rule. Let unripe avocados ripen on the counter first. When they give slightly to gentle pressure, they're ready. At that point, and only at that point, you can refrigerate them if you're not ready to eat them right away. The fridge will help keep them ripe for 2 to 3 more days without tipping into overripe territory. Already cut one open? No problem. To slow the browning, brush the exposed flesh with lemon or lime juice, cover it tightly with plastic wrap, press it directly against the surface, and refrigerate. Or place the half with the pit still into an airtight container. This helps reduce surface exposure and slows oxidation. Better yet, if your avocados are ripening faster than you can eat them, freeze them, peel and slice them, store in a zip-top freezer bag, and use them in smoothies, sauces, or spreads later. The texture may change slightly, but the nutrients and flavor stay mostly intact. And here's a tip from the old-school kitchen wisdom. To speed up ripening, place avocados in a brown paper bag with a ripe banana or apple. The extra ethylene gas helps ripen them faster, naturally and gently. In short, room temperature to ripen, fridge to pause ripeness briefly, freezer to save for later. Handled with a little care, avocados can go from frustrating to foolproof and bring you that luxurious, nourishing bite just when you need it. Simple changes, big rewards. Keeping garlic dry and avocados out of the fridge until they're ready might not seem revolutionary. But over time, these small habits shape the way your kitchen feels, the way your meals taste, and the way you care for your health. And that's worth something. If you've learned something new today, or if you've ever been frustrated by a stubborn avocado, drop a or emoji below. Let's keep the conversation going. Coming up next, bananas and melons, two fruits that often go straight to the fridge, but probably shouldn't. I'll show you how to treat them right and what you gain when you do. Shall we continue? Bananas. There's something so familiar, so comforting about a banana. It's the fruit we've all known since childhood. Easy to peel, gentle on the stomach, sweet without being overwhelming. Whether you're grabbing one for breakfast or slicing it over cereal, bananas are dependable. They don't need washing, peeling tools, or prep, just a hand and a moment. But when it comes to storage, bananas have one simple request: keep me out of the fridge. Bananas are tropical by nature. They thrive in warmth and ripen best in room temperature air. But when you place them in the refrigerator, especially while they're still yellow or green, you interrupt that ripening process in a way that's difficult to undo. Within a day or two, the peel darkens. First a light speckle, then brown blotches, and finally a black skin that looks like it belongs in the compost bin. But here's the twist. When you peel it open, the fruit inside often remains pale, firm, and unripe. It's a confusing mismatch. Looks overripe, tastes underripe. This is what scientists call a chilling injury. Cold temperatures damage the banana's cell walls, and though it might still be edible, it never quite finishes what nature started. Even if you remove it from the fridge, the fruit won't continue to ripen properly. Its flavor stays muted, the texture slightly rubbery. So how should we treat bananas? Let them ripen naturally on your countertop. Place them away from direct sunlight and heat, and let time do the work. If you're hoping to slow the ripening down, consider hanging them on a banana hook, a simple trick that prevents bruising and encourages even airflow. But what if your bananas are ripening too quickly? What if you've got a bunch that all hit their peak at once? Don't panic. Freeze them. Peel them first. Slice them into coins or halves. Lay them flat on parchment before transferring to a freezer bag. Frozen bananas are magic in smoothies, oatmeal, or baking. In fact, that overripe sweetness makes for the best banana bread you'll ever taste. It's a second life for a fruit that ripens fast, but wastes nothing. And here's a tip from back in the day. If you want to ripen bananas faster, place them in a paper bag with an apple. The natural ethylene gas speeds things along. It's a trick grandmothers have used for generations. No gadgets required. The message is simple. Don't put green or yellow bananas in the fridge. Let them ripen naturally. Freeze what you can't eat. That's how we respect a good banana, by letting it grow into itself, naturally and gently. Melons. Now let's turn to something a little larger, but just as delicate. Melons. There's nothing like that first bite of a perfectly ripe watermelon in July. Sweet, cool, and hydrating all at once. Or the smooth richness of cantaloupe or honeydew at breakfast, with their soft texture and sun-kissed flavor. But here's a storage mistake many of us make without realizing it: putting whole, uncut melons in the fridge too early. At first glance, it seems logical. Keep them cold, keep them fresh, right? But in truth, refrigerating uncut melons before they're ripe can do more harm than good. Here's what happens. Melons continue to ripen after harvest. Even after they've been picked from the vine, their sugars develop slowly at room temperature. That process enhances both sweetness and aroma. When you stick them in the fridge too soon, you pause that ripening, locking in blandness and even altering the texture. Watermelons can become grainy. Cantaloupes can soften oddly. Honeydew loses its gentle perfume and grows dull. More importantly, recent studies from the USDA have shown that melons stored at room temperature actually retain higher levels of antioxidants, especially beta-carotene and vitamin C. These nutrients are crucial for immune health, heart protection, and healthy aging. So, when should you use the fridge? Only after cutting the melon. Once sliced, the fruit becomes perishable and vulnerable to bacteria. That's when the refrigerator becomes your ally. To keep sliced melon fresh, wrap tightly in plastic wrap or place in an airtight container. Store for up to 3 to 4 days. Avoid letting pieces sit uncovered. They'll dry out or absorb odors from nearby food. And here's a tip. If you're not sure whether your melon is ripe, give it a sniff. A ripe cantaloupe or honeydew will have a slightly sweet fragrance near the stem end. Watermelons should feel heavy for their size, with a deep, hollow sound when tapped. In short, leave whole melons on the counter until ripe. Chill only after cutting. Enjoy within a few days. Handled right, melons aren't just fruit. They're refreshment, comfort, and nourishment. A small celebration of summer, no matter the season. So there you have it. Bananas and melons, two of nature's most generous fruits, asking for a little space, a little warmth, and a little patience. In return, they give us energy, hydration, sweetness, and joy. Sometimes storing food correctly isn't about rules. It's about listening, paying attention to the rhythms of nature, the way something feels in your hand, or the smell that brings back memories of childhood kitchens and Sunday brunches. If this part brought back a memory or taught you something new, drop a or emoji in the comments. I'd love to know which one you're treating differently from now on. Next, we'll tackle something truly unexpected. Bread and honey, two everyday staples we often refrigerate without thinking, but probably shouldn't. Ready to keep going? Bread. There's something timeless about a loaf of bread. It's one of the oldest foods known to humankind. For centuries, families have gathered around it, breaking it, sharing it, blessing it. It's more than just food, it's a symbol of care, comfort, and community. Whether it's a warm slice slathered in butter, a crisp toast at breakfast, or the soft cradle for your favorite sandwich, bread is home, so it's no surprise we try to protect it, and often think the refrigerator is the best place to do so. But here's the truth. Refrigerating bread actually makes it go stale faster. It seems counterintuitive. Cold preserves things, right? That's true for milk or meat, but not for bread. In fact, the cold air in your fridge accelerates a process called starch retrogradation. That's a fancy way of saying the bread's internal structure starts to break down. The result? A soft loaf turns crumbly and dry. The crust loses its texture, and the flavor dulls, turning something beautiful into something bland. Even worse, moisture from the fridge can sneak into the crust, making it oddly soggy on the outside and stale inside. A lose-lose situation? So what should we do instead? Here's a better approach, based on how bakers and wise grandmothers have done it for generations. Short-term storage. If you'll eat your bread within 2 to 3 days, store it at room temperature in a cool, dry place. A bread box, paper bag, or clean tea towel is perfect. Avoid plastic bags unless you're storing pre-sliced sandwich bread. They trap moisture and soften the crust. Long-term storage. If you won't finish it quickly, don't refrigerate. Freeze it. Slice the loaf first, wrap the slices tightly in plastic wrap or a freezer bag, and store flat. When you need a piece, just pop it in the toaster or oven. It'll come out warm, soft, and nearly as good as fresh. This method preserves both texture and taste. No wasted bread, no disappointment. And here's a little emotional truth. Bread is meant to be shared, not forgotten in the back of the fridge. When you treat it right, every slice feels like a small act of love for yourself or someone you're feeding. Honey. Now let's talk about something golden. Honey, it's more than just a sweetener. It's a miracle of nature. Made drop by tireless bees. It's been found in Egyptian tombs, still edible after thousands of years. That's the magic of honey. It doesn't spoil, it doesn't rot, it doesn't need the fridge. And yet many people instinctively store honey there, thinking cold will keep it fresh. But in truth, refrigeration is the one thing that can ruin its charm. Here's what happens. Cold temperatures accelerate crystallization. That smooth, flowing honey suddenly turns gritty, cloudy, or even solid. It's still safe to eat, but it becomes hard to scoop, slow to pour, and awkward to stir into tea or oatmeal. And while crystallization is natural, cold makes it happen faster. Even more concerning, the fridge can cause moisture to collect inside the jar, especially if it isn't sealed tightly. That tiny bit of water can upset the delicate balance inside and, in rare cases, even lead to fermentation or spoilage. So how should you store honey? Simple. Room temperature, tightly sealed, away from direct sunlight or heat. That's it. Place it in your pantry, a cabinet, or even on the countertop. Honey's antibacterial nature protects it. It's strong. It doesn't need babysitting. If it ever crystallizes, don't worry. Just set the jar in warm water, not boiling, for a few minutes and stir. The crystals will melt and the smoothness will return. And here's a tender reminder. A spoonful of honey and tea before bed, a drizzle over warm cornbread, a dab on a sore throat. These aren't just traditions. They're rituals of care, passed down through generations. When we treat honey gently, we carry on those rituals with grace and gratitude. So with bread and honey, two of life's simplest pleasures, the answer isn't to overprotect them in the fridge. It's to honor their nature, to let bread breathe and honey shine, to store them not with fear, but with understanding. If this section reminded you of someone special, maybe a parent, a grandparent, or a favorite kitchen memory, drop a or in the comments. I'd love to know what you're keeping out of the fridge from now on. Coming up in our final section, the last item on our list, olive oil, plus a heartfelt wrap-up you won't want to miss. Shall we finish strong? Olive oil. There's something sacred about olive oil. It's not just food, it's tradition, medicine, memory. From ancient groves in the Mediterranean to quiet American kitchens today, olive oil has been poured, drizzled, and massaged into meals with care. It nourishes more than the body. It warms the soul. And yet, despite its strength, this golden oil has one very specific request. Please don't put it in the fridge. At first, that might sound odd. After all, we refrigerate things to protect them, to make them last longer, to prevent spoilage. But with olive oil, refrigeration can do more harm than good. When exposed to cold, especially in the back of a fridge, olive oil begins to solidify. You'll notice it becomes cloudy, thick, and even forms soft, waxy clumps. While this isn't dangerous, and the oil can return to its liquid state at room temperature, the texture and taste can suffer. Repeated cycles of chilling and warming slowly wear down the flavor. That bold peppery finish, that smooth grassy aroma, it fades, and what's left is dull, missing the vibrancy that makes olive oil so special. But flavor isn't the only thing at risk. Cold environments like your fridge can introduce condensation, especially when the oil is stored in a clear bottle. Tiny droplets of moisture form inside, mixing with the oil and creating the perfect environment for spoilage over time. And while olive oil is naturally resistant to oxidation, exposure to light, air, and heat can speed up its decline. That means the very act of opening the fridge door, letting in light and temperature changes, can do more damage than good. So where should you store olive oil? In a dark, cool cupboard, far from the stove or window, in a dark glass bottle or stainless steel container, tightly sealed. Treat it as you would something precious because it is, not just for flavor, but for health. Extra virgin olive oil is full of polyphenols, powerful antioxidants that fight inflammation, support brain health, and protect the heart. And beyond nutrition, olive oil is woven into the small joys of life, dipping a warm crust of bread into golden oil, rubbing it onto cracked hands in winter, drizzling it over a bowl of soup made for someone you love. That's not just food, that's care. Final thoughts. So there we have it. 10 foods we often refrigerate without thinking, each one with a story, a tradition, and a better way to be stored. From creamy avocados and humble potatoes to golden honey and timeless olive oil. Each of these isn't just a pantry item. It's part of a rhythm, a way of living that respects flavor, preserves nutrition, and honors the wisdom of generations before us. Here's the deeper truth. How we treat our food reflects how we treat ourselves. When we slow down enough to ask, where should I store this? What brings out its best? We're really asking those same questions about our own lives too. Maybe this video reminded you of something your mother used to do, or the way your grandfather never put tomatoes in the fridge because they taste like the garden when they sit in the sun. These small rituals matter. They connect us, they bring comfort, and sometimes they teach us more than science ever could. So as we wrap up, here's one last invitation. Go look in your fridge. Is there a loaf of bread that deserves to breathe on the counter? A jar of honey begging to be free of the cold? A tomato that belongs in a sunny windowsill, not behind the milk? Start with one change, then another. And soon your kitchen becomes a place not just of meals, but of mindfulness. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video opened your eyes or warmed your heart, drop it in the comments and let's start a real conversation. I'd love to know, what's one food you'll treat differently from now on? And if you haven't yet, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps us keep sharing small lessons that lead to a better, simpler, wiser life. Until next time, take care of your food, your home, and yourself. See you in the next one.